Yeah.
I just feel like our conversation when we went for dinner and what you post on Instagram about and everything that's been going on in the world recently, I just feel like I was like, I need to talk to her. She needs to
Good,
come.
I like it.
So I've started recording, so we're already chatting. Guys, welcome back to the podcast slash YouTube. Depending where you're on. This is my friend Tash. Everyone say hello to Tash. Tash, can you give us a little lowdown about what it is you do, Queen of Yoga?
So yeah, I'm a yoga teacher, but I've just moved to Devon. I definitely didn't move to Devon. I've just moved to London. Although I was thinking about this before, I haven't actually announced it on social media yet, like not officially.
I know.
Like the official announcement then that I'm opening a studio in London, like an amazing studio as well.
Whereabouts?
It's in Moorgate, so it's taking over what was an old studio. So it's this like, oh, I can't wait for you to see it. It's like beautiful, like 3 massive rooms, a small treatment room. Like it's beautifully done inside because it was a studio, and then in the first lockdown, they closed their doors and kind of didn't really do much. And then I had this opportunity to come in and reopen it. So we're rebranding.
Yeah.
And we will be Elevate Collective. So I'm just hoping that by the end of this week I'll have some branding so I can actually start like officially pushing it. But yeah, it's just everything's just gone mad.
Hasn't it? How exciting.
Living in London, I would never thought that would be a thing I would do. That was just
I
so
know.
long ago.
So just for anyone listening that doesn't know, I live in Devon. That's how we know each other, not just Devon. But we both lived in Devon. And now you're starting somewhere new in London.
No, it's so funny. Like people used to say, "Why do you not live in London?" Because the yoga scene here is so good.
Yeah.
And I was always very anti, like, no, I just don't want to live there, just don't want it. And I think, to be honest, if I'm really honest, I think the reason was that it was a really intimidating place for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Devon is so small that you don't have to do much to be seen.
No, you can be a big fish here, can't you?
Yeah, and in London, that is not the case. Like, for every person that's great, there's still like 100 of them.
Yeah.
And so standing out here was always felt like, oh, is that just going to be hassle? And then I know teachers have to work even harder here. Not that I'm adverse to hard work, of course, but I also don't see the point in working like 30 hours a week when you can earn the same money earning 10, which actually you can do in Devon if you do it well.
And okay,
yeah.
how is it in London? Like, how is it where you potentially being a slightly smaller fish?
To be honest, I haven't really experienced it yet. And actually my mindset on it is changing. And I think as I approach the studio from a totally different place. So my whole thing now is like, I'm not fussed about being like a main teacher at the studio or it being anywhere near about me. Like, I just really want to bring a really cool community of teachers in and have that support network that actually I feel like I did have in Devon, because there's like lovely teachers, but it's all done on a way smaller scale, and often people don't do it full time, and here people are just like leaps and bounds ahead, and there's so many inspiring people and so much to learn here that I'm actually looking forward to like offering up a space to create that community where people come and they all support each other, and everybody's like hopefully going to be on the same team, because I think then the students will like feed off of that anyway. So I feel like with the teachers that I'm like trying to get on board, I won't have to worry too much about trying to actually get students in, because that will happen organically, I think.
Yeah.
Like happy teachers, it's the same in any job, like happy staff, happy customer. Yeah. The teaching is no different. Like if teachers come in and they love where they're teaching and they're comfortable in that community, then I think it's just going to do so well.
Yeah, definitely. So guys, for you wouldn't have heard that. I can't remember when I pressed record now. But Tash and I went for dinner a while ago now, eh?
I
And
know. I feel like it was like pre-Christmas, obviously lockdown. It was pre me knowing I was coming to London, so definitely before December. So
yeah,
maybe like I don't
maybe
know.
like October. Oh, God, I don't know, sometime. And we
Yeah.
went in deep, didn't we? And I just thought I often think about that conversation. I just think it would be so good to have on the podcast and on YouTube. And we just spoke so much about how the things that we learn in school is nothing about the experiences that we have experienced as women. And then this won't go out until a month or so after what's happened this week, but at the time of recording last week there was a lot of things going on around women in the media, and we spoke so much about how actually we were never taught anything about periods, anything about how to deal with men, anything to do with any of that. So can you, anything,
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
your experience on that side of things? So like, how do you view your sort of like teenage years trying to navigate womanhood, I guess?
See, I don't. Looking back, I definitely had like I've got endometriosis, and which is a condition that affects. I mean, it's a full body condition. It's not. People think that it's just kind of cycle related, but it's been found in men, so it's not just. It's primarily an issue for women, but also men have it too. But I definitely had painful periods then. And my mum, I've always had quite a good relationship with my mum anyway, so we were always fairly open about stuff. But she didn't know a lot of the stuff that I found out, like from reading Period Power. I think that was the book that we were talking about when we were at dinner. Like, I didn't know that my vagina was in fact not my vagina but my vulva. Like, how did I get to? How was I 31 years old when I realised that I had been incorrectly talking about my own body parts?
100%.
And I've always considered myself quite like a confident woman who knows her body. So to have gone through my life not realizing that. And then when I had that conversation with my mum, she was like, shut up, no way. It's like, yeah, mum, I didn't know. And there's so much that, like, looking back, and again, like I'm a like loud and confident by nature, and so for me growing up, I actually probably would have found it quite funny to have spoken about something that somebody else might have been shy about. But I think coming into adulthood and having a disease which, yeah, I say it's affects men, it is technically a gynecological disease, but to have so much going on with my body and to not understand any of it, and then even the diagnosis that I went through, like I just had no tools. I had no tools in my own toolbox to deal or understand what was happening in my body.
Definitely.
And it's not until the last like few years of reading that I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, literally. And I do, if it's all right with you, want to go into a bit more about your diagnosis. But what if you had anything, like if you could say something to your younger self about like anything that you just want her to know, is there anything?
I'd probably say that if it doesn't feel right, it isn't, and ask questions.
Yeah, good one.
Like, I think we're not. I don't think we're taught really as women to trust our voices.
Mm-mm.
Like, we sense something happening in our bodies, and we are often palmed off. Like, I went to the doctors a lot, and it was always like, "Oh, you've just got heavy periods, or it's this." And I'd got my diagnosis for my endo actually came after I was having really painful sex with my ex-boyfriend, and going to the doctor and saying, look, this is going to ruin my relationship because it's now affecting our sex life in such a way that he thinks I don't want him. I don't know what's going on. All I know is it hurts. And the doctor was just like, basically like, well, you just probably don't really want sex. And like, try using lube, the kind of standard, like bog standard tick box things that
story, isn't it? it's like,
Exactly.
I do find that, and I completely understand GPs see a lot of people, they have a lot of pressure, and I understand that they don't necessarily go into the nitty gritties of women's health, but
Yeah.
I just found as well, like, it's just always put a plaster over it.
Exactly. Yeah. It feels like whatever is going to get this person out of the surgery as quickly as possible, we'll do that. And this was, by the way, when I was living in Holland. So this wasn't the NHS that I got this from either. So it's like kind of across the board, I think, in terms of, and I don't know if you even consider if it's technically, I guess it is private healthcare because you pay for your health insurance there separately. So like it comes out of your national insurance. So technically you do choose your health insurance company, but you still go to like the standard doctors. Yeah, and then I went back and he referred us in the end. In fact, no, he didn't. I think I referred us to a sex therapist because I was like, well, maybe it's all in my head and I just need to go and speak to somebody and we can do this because we're a couple and this feels like the right thing to do for us. And in that meeting, the lady was like, okay, have you ever seen a gynecologist? And when I said no, she was like, well, you might, like, you think this is in your head, but it's worth getting checked because it might not be. Like, you could have something and then you'll realize that this isn't in your head after all and it really is painful for a reason. And she made the referral to a gynecologist, and literally within that first, and this is like TMI, but within that first meeting, and they did the internal ultrasound, you could see as the wand went in on the screen, the cyst, you could see the wand pushing into the cyst. So then it made perfect sense that obviously when I'm having penetrative sex, that's what's happening. Like, and then all of a sudden it was this like, oh, okay. And I would have been, I would say like 22 at that point. I'd been with my boyfriend then for 4 years and seeking help, I reckon, for 2 years on that particular thing. So it's like, that was a long process to go through to have something and not be heard. Like not feel like, and not heard and not feel like I could trust my body in knowing, like I knew something wasn't up. I was like, I'm sure this is not right.
Yeah, and that belief, like, it's like you naturally felt as if there was something wrong with you that was actually, like, it wasn't your body, it was something so much more, and something that you've got a problem with. And I just feel like that's what women are faced against constantly, of like, that makes me feel uncomfortable, but that's my problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that, to go back to like everything that's happened this week with Sarah Everard being murdered, I want to say going missing, and obviously we now know she's been murdered. It's that whole thing of like all of these things we do as women where we know like if something doesn't feel right and we're just kind of not heard with it, whether that's our health, whether that's our safety, whether that's what's happening in the workplace, any number of things. Yeah, I think it feels like the world is like at the moment, like our emotional resilience is slower. I don't know if you feel like that. Like it feels like there's lots of things happening, lots of really big, important things. But I think previously we've all had this emotional resilience to be like, that shit, but it's okay. We're going to be pissed off about it and then move on. I hope I can swear on your podcast.
Yeah, Christ, I've got the right potty mouth, so yeah, definitely.
I once did a speech at a wedding, and I was not supposed to swear, and I was so nervous. I got really drunk and swore a lot, and then now I'm like scarred from that. So when I'm doing these things and I swear, I'm like, no. What was I just saying? I lost my train of thought.
Just about the resilience that we feel.
Yeah. And I think now it feels like everybody's like way more triggered by stuff because we've had a year of just being able to sit in and actually think of like all of the things going on in the world that just aren't really fair.
Yeah, definitely. And I it's such a topic that, you know, there's so much of like, I've seen, and I don't know if you've seen, but I've seen a lot on social media of just like, oh, here's another thing. But it's not like, we have lived in a man's world for, well, since, I'm going to put it out there and say, since the New Age Christianity, where I've read a book recently, Mary Magdalene. Have you heard of her?
Oh yeah, I have.
Yeah, and how there was so many parts of her, like gospels, that was like ripped out of books and burned, and you can't actually piece together, and these certain like extracts from these have been found, and it basically suggests that Mary Magdalene was portrayed as this prostitute, whereas actually like she wasn't. It was, from what people have managed to put together, I'm not doing this any justice, I'd really recommend reading the book, but it basically was saying that actually no, like she worked really closely with Jesus, and she was like one of like the healers or whatever. And I do think there's such power in that, us women, and when you look at like spirituality in sense of like masculine energy and feminine energy, the feminine energy is all about intuition and listening to your gut. Yet because we've lived in this man's world for so long, or sorry, maybe not man's, like masculine, like very go world, we're told that nah, that doesn't exist, that voice.
And it's this, like, talking of like the masculine, feminine, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day. It's like, the more we live out of balance in that, and I think women have to show up in more of their masculine energy so much. And like, and that even goes so far as like, you know, having worked in a corporate setting, like if you turn up to work in fact, I feel like you probably would have anyway, because I always associate you with like bright pink. Like, I actually keep meaning to message you to be like, where can I get a really bright pink jumper? But it's like, even things like the colours that you dress in, what you wear to work is going to make a difference in how seriously you are taken as a woman. So if you do feminine, you're not taken seriously. If you show emotion at work, you're not taken seriously. So we have to show up super masculine. And then that in itself creates this imbalance, because men are already told they can't have feminine, but all people should.
Yeah.
And if they do show up feminine, they're told to man up.
Yeah.
And it's like on both sides, there's such a huge imbalance.
And I notice it in like body image and things like that. I think as women, we are very, and I'm going to say lucky, in the sense that the body positive, body acceptance movement in the female world is huge now. And you can kind of go to somewhere on social media and feel a little bit more okay. Men, where's that for the men's side? I look at some guys that I used to see in the gym, and I think they've got more of a problem than I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the whole thing, isn't it? Like, we look at like women who train a lot, and I think you and I probably would look to do the same now, sort of look at somebody who's training arguably to excess, and then one like, okay, but how is that impacting? Where is that coming from? That like burning need to train all of the time to control what you eat. But men, like, nobody looks at men for those same things. Nobody's like, they just assume that they're like mad for the gym, and that's it. It's like as deep as it goes. Oh, he's mad for the gym, that he loves it.
Yeah, but really, they're
steroids, like steroids.
Yeah,
and then there's no.
But really, guys could potentially be sat at home, and I know there's guys like insecurities and eating disorders and stuff like that. Whereas for women, it's becoming more spoken about, like, for example, chats about you talking about endo, the fact that I do not think twice about talking about poo and periods on the internet, which we should be able to anyway, but is there that space for men to be able to talk about stuff like that as well? I'm not so sure. But then you flip it, and going back to what you said about like the corporate world, is 100% I would dress completely differently if I knew I had a big meeting.
Yeah, same. From like, I used to go to meetings like pre-teaching yoga, and I wouldn't have worn heels. I would have, if I wore heels, they would have been like a real power shoe with like some kind of sharp, like maybe like a sharp point and like a square heel, or something that was almost like quite androgynous.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have worn like my favorite like floral pumps or something. Or I would have worn flat shoes, so that I could have like sexed myself down, if you like. Like, I wouldn't have shown up feeling like, like I was, I don't know, like you almost don't want to be attractive. Does that make sense?
Oh my God, 100%. Yeah.
Because And the same going for job interviews. Like, I wanted to look nice, but also I'd be like, right, but I need to make sure that I can't wear that because that's maybe a bit too fitted. And so then what if I'm being hired for the wrong reason because I've shown up in a pencil skirt and it shows off my bum? Like,
I would often wear gym stuff into work because I obviously worked in sport, that I would wear gym stuff into the office just to make sure, like, by the way, I do know what I'm talking about. And I felt as if that was my uniform because I was in the fitness department. So it was like, this is how I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh my God, I feel that too. I did a yoga for athletes training so that I could wear. I was teaching the Exeter Chiefs rugby guys at the time. Yeah. And I remember having this feeling of like, right, I'm going to go and approach the club at some point about teaching them like on behalf of the club. But I know that no matter how much training I had, I was still viewed upon as probably that little yoga girl.
Yeah.
So I went and did a strength and conditioning training because in my mind I was like, well, maybe if I do this, because I train at the gym too. So when I'm having conversations with the guys, like I have a good understanding of how the human body works.
Yeah. And
not just because I teach yoga, but because I've educated myself on the way that the human body moves. But I was like, well, maybe if I have an S&C title, they might take me a little bit more seriously because all of a sudden I have this thing that is a word that they know of and that not many women have.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of women who are PTs, but they're not strength and conditioning coaches. And the fact of the matter is, I've never done it. Like, I never got that to train people. Yeah. I think I had like a yoga client that was like, oh, could you help me get strong? And I was like, yeah, I can try. But I never did it with like for any other reason than so that I would be taken seriously as a female in a male environment.
Yeah. Do you feel like that happened even when you were looking at your endometriosis? So did you feel like you had to, how was it in terms of being taken seriously? Because you and I both know, and I'm not sure if people listening know, but the amount of research done on female health is like minuscule compared to the amount done on men's. How seriously did you feel like your problems were taken?
Not seriously at all. I've actually posted about it today. I've got coronavirus. I've just got a cough. So it looks like a tickle on my throat. It's like that's the problem now. Anytime you cough, you can see like people around you like, oh no, she got COVID.
I wake up and if I've got a slight head fog or slight something, I'm like, oh my god, need to isolate.
Yeah. It's so bad, isn't it? They're like, oh, absolute paranoia of like, oh my god, I have COVID. Luckily, I've been taking my temperature every morning, just literally like to track where my cycle's at. But that's like a nice, easy, like, okay, I haven't got a temperature this morning. But no, I posted about it today that not feeling taken seriously, like so I find again that whole masculine feminine thing, I question sometimes, like if my gynecologist saw me when it's my time of the month and my symptoms are really bad and then I'm in bed for 2 days and he sees me emotional, would he take me more seriously than when he sees me when I go in to see him? And then all of a sudden I find myself naturally putting on this tough girl kind of bravado, this like masculine energy comes over me again, and I'm trying to talk to him quite directly and I'm like, I'm going to be firm. But no matter what I say, he thinks he knows better. And I'm not saying that I know better than a gynecologist in all areas, but I would also say that he's probably done a small amount of training on my disease that I live with every day.
Yeah.
And so when he tells me you should go on the pill, that's going to help, I know from research that does not help. It's like putting a plaster on it. But he will argue with me. And I mean, we've had, so like pre my last surgery last year, pre-surgery, he came in and was like, you're off the pill. Okay. Why? When I explained why, he was like, oh, well, we think you should have the coil fitted. And I'm like, no, I really don't want it. And I think he tried twice before I went under. Then when I came out of surgery and they told me my disease had progressed to severe, he then said again, we really think that you should reconsider having the coil put in, coming back and having that done. And I'm again like, I don't want it. And at this point, I'm all drowsy, and it's like, so therein lies the thing which I already have a problem with, which is I've said no once, I've said no twice. Don't come at me a third time when I'm still sleeping from my anaesthetic, and emotional about what you've just told me, which is that actually, because my surgery prior to that was like 8 years prior, I had been on the pill for a long period of, like a long portion of that. I'd only just been off the pill maybe when I went in for surgery for like 3 months or something. And the disease, like my symptoms had been getting worse for maybe a year prior to that surgery. So prior to that, I was reasonably symptom free, which is due to being on the pill because it suppressed all my symptoms. But what it absolutely demonstrated is that it didn't stop it from growing, because my first surgery, I just had a cyst on my ovary. From what I was told, it wasn't anywhere else. Mm-hmm. My second surgery, it was on every available surface in my pelvis, including my bowel. It was on my diaphragm, my ab wall, my ovary had stuck to like the side of my wall from the previous surgery, so they had to detach that. So to be coming at me again and just telling me that I need to do this thing, which I'm telling him I don't want to do. And then again, in my follow-up call, he tried again to convince me. And when I'm saying no, because it doesn't help, he's like, yes, it does. It really does. We've done surgery on people. We've seen what the disease looks like on people who have been on the pill and people who haven't been on the pill, and it looks different. Yeah, but it might look different, but it's still there. And anyway, I don't want hormones in my body. I don't want synthetic hormones in my body, which is already out of balance.
Yeah.
But if he was taking me seriously, he would just go, okay, fair enough, you've done your research. And then the last time I went in, it was the same thing. He auto pushed again, and we had the same conversation. And I'm still waiting. So that was, my surgery was January last year. They didn't remove what was on my bowel, because he said that like could potentially, if they'd like caught any part of that could mean a bigger surgery. So they wanted to do that separately. This is another female-male difference, which I know is a very real one. In my follow-up call, he also said, well, if it's not going to affect your fertility, we could just leave what's on your bowel. And I'm like, but it's causing me pain every month. Yeah, but it's not going to affect your fertility. Right, so my ability to reproduce as a woman is important. My ability to have a good quality of life is not. Oh, you know, if a guy was going in to the doctor and saying, my balls are aching real bad, 2 days of the month I can't work because they're so bad, he wouldn't be told, well, there's not actually anything wrong, it's not going to affect your fertility, so crack on, mate. It just would never happen. Would never happen.
That is literally, that's blown my mind. Do you think it would have been different if you had a female?
I think so. I'm joined to a really, and for anyone who has endo, there's a really great group called Nancy's Nook on Facebook. It's a really odd name, but she's like a leading endo researcher, and she's created this book and this page, and I don't know how many followers it has now, but it's like 50,000. It might even be more than that. It's a lot of people, and she has kind of endo approved surgeons on there. Wow. Because there are people who are better read in what they do, but I think a gynecologist is trained in doing lots of different surgeries, not necessarily specific to one particular disease. So that I wouldn't like to say if it was a female, because it would depend on her training. But however, I do think a female probably would take me more seriously when I'm saying, no, I've done research here, I know this, these are my reasons for not wanting to go on the pill. I want to feel what's happening in my body. I want to feel when I'm in pain so that I know when there's a problem. Yeah. And I want to manage that naturally and not put synthetic hormones in my body because they don't make me feel good or happy. Yeah. Maybe a woman might respect that differently.
That's interesting to say, because I had females all the way throughout. A female gynae diagnosed me with PCOS, but interestingly, it was a guy that was above her, went
Okay.
and checked on it and was like, no, she doesn't. But every time I went, I knew I had a problem. I knew, like, I knew going to bed starving hungry was a problem, but because
Yeah.
I wasn't making myself sick, and I wasn't, like, so underweight that it was an issue, like, to the general part. I just looked fit and healthy to the majority of people. I even found that in the system, if you like, the NHS, it was like it was like their mind was blown, in the sense of, like, I got applauded for my BMI when the nurse took my BMI there, and I was like, I remember standing on the scales thinking, please be at least a little bit underweight, because I knew I had something wrong with me, but I didn't know where to turn and how I dealt with that. And then when I was told, you're really healthy, and in my head I'm thinking, oh, okay, so maybe that carrot and pepper I had for dinner was all right then.
Yeah. Oh, it's so mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember it, like the whole being in your head thing, before I went into surgery, saying to my ex-boyfriend, I was so worried that they were going to go in and not find anything.
Yeah.
Even though I was experiencing pain, my fear wasn't about the surgery, about the pain, about the recovery. My biggest fear that I was worried about was that I was going to go under and they weren't going to find anything. And I actually said to the anaesthetist, I was finding that was such a hard word to say. I remember saying to her, I'm scared that there's not going to be anything there. And the relief I felt, it was like a real double-edged sword when I came out from being like, yes, there was something there. Thank God I wasn't imagining it. Oh, wait, it's really severe. Oh, God, no. Like,
100%. I resonate. As soon as I worked with Renee McGregor, she was the first doctor to tell me, no, your bloods are fucked. Like, your estrogen is non-existent, and no, the way you're living is not normal. And I just remember coming out of there and just thinking, I wanted to go, I told you lot I'm nuts. Like, told you lot I've got a problem.
I know, and isn't it mad to think that, like, again, it's that whole not trusting our intuition, which we know, and I think especially for people who actually probably do come from some kind of fitness, health, wellness background. We spend our days trying to be in tune with our body, trying to feel good, to look good, to understand what we're doing, possibly more than your average office worker who sits in an office all day long and doesn't need to think about it. Like, it's what we do to a point. So, like, then to be told, no, actually, you don't know what you're talking about here. Just go on the pill.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate the pill now,
but when it comes to intuition, how have you found that in terms of relationships? Have you found that you've suppressed that as well?
Yeah.
Would you say so in would you say in majority of experiences you have been known to suppress your intuition? And what do you feel like that means? So, like, for someone that might not necessarily know what we're talking about in terms of, like, intuition and suppressing it, in your experiences, what could you give us some examples?
Yeah, so I think I've been in a few relationships. My last one, which was like a really awful, toxic, abusive relationship, and even like in a more kind of innocent way with nothing toxic happening. I remember being with an ex-boyfriend and thinking, oh, I don't find you that engaging or interesting. My intuition said he's not the one for you. The other part of me that thought, oh, maybe he could be. Maybe I just don't know. Maybe I'm looking for the wrong thing. I don't know what I'm looking for. Who knows? He's really nice. He's probably not going to break my heart. I'll crack on with this one.
Yeah.
And then I found myself like 4 years down the line, like, oh, why did I not trust my initial thought there? Because now I've wasted time. It's not wasted time because there's like learning happens in relationships. And then in my last one, like, my intuition was really wrong, actually. And I think this is, again, where it makes it hard to trust it. So my intuition was really wrong in that I thought he was a really nice, kind person to begin with. Like, I remember literally being like, oh my God, he's so emotionally intelligent. I don't want to say too much because it's probably weird. I say this and then I don't, like, I think about, like, I don't know if you've seen FK Twigs and Shia LaBeouf. Have you seen any of that? Oh, it's like, I'll have to send you some stuff, but she's come out and spoken about the abuse that she suffered at the hands of their relationship and with him. And I read it and was like, I mean, it was really triggering and I was really upset, but I was also like, power to her. Like, there is so much strength also, I think, in women talking about these things, because no one wants to upset anybody. But the fact is, by not talking, I'm also worried that, like, I might not give somebody else, or somebody else might not realize that what they're going through is really not okay. Yeah. But yeah,
we don't have or details. We can keep it generalized.
Keep it general. People who follow me will be like, we know.
That's also like, look, if the shoe fits, don't be an arsehole.
Oh, exactly. If you think it might be you, it's probably you. But yeah, my intuition at the start of that was like, oh my God, best thing ever, love him. And then I was really wrong. And then my intuition said, get out. But then there was that other side of me that again was like, maybe I should just stay in this because I can make excuses for all the reasons that his behavior is this way.
What if, right? What if it does?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What if, and and just that, like, the potential, that my intuition was like, he's never going to get better. This is the best I'm ever going to have, and it's awful. Like, it's only going, my intuition said, this is only going to get worse, get out.
Yeah.
But I didn't trust myself at that point either, and that also happens in those relationships where you learn to not trust yourself. Then I started, so we broke up, and then I started seeing, and this was also around the time that the studio started happening, probably like a month before, and I started seeing 1111 everywhere, like, and I mean everywhere, every day, like probably 5 times a day, and was just like, this is so weird. Like, I'd randomly check my phone and it would be that like 11 minutes past 11 constantly. And then I had a reading with a lady, and I mentioned to her about 1111, and she was literally like, that is your guardian angels telling you to trust your intuition, because you haven't, you've been knocked down, and you are safe to trust it again. Like, keep moving forward, keep trusting it. Yeah. And I was literally like, okay. And now every time I see it, I'm like, okay. And I always find it's weird. It's so weird. And I know of all people, you'll be like, yeah, I get it. There's so many times when I like have a couple off days where I don't feel like I've really achieved much and my head's not been in the game. And then I'm like, right, I'm gonna sort myself out and start like refocusing again. And it's like on those days where I'm like, no, I'm refocusing, and I do something good, I see 1111.
Yeah.
It's like the universe, like, get back on.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same in intuition. There was one time that I really remember. So I was with a guy for on and off for 8 years, since I was 13. So when you're together with someone that long, you just think, no matter what, obviously I'm meant to be with you forever. Obviously I'm meant to have kids with you, no matter what. You can cheat on me, whatever. But because we've been on together for this long, maybe this is just what happens. And like, it was kind of like, there was a lot of pressure on us to stay together as well, like childhood sweethearts. And I remember we'd split up for like 6 months, I think. We often split up. And this one particular time we'd got back together, and he said, I was sat on his bed. I don't think I've ever said this out loud, actually. He said, so are we like together? And I'm not very good at hiding and lying. And my body language, what came out of my mouth was, yeah. What was in my stomach, in my head, I remember looking out the window, and I must have had this whole conversation in my head, which what I thought was like 2 seconds long, but I think the silence was just a little bit too. And he was like, you don't, do you? And then I had to like overexert to be like, yeah, no, I do. And that's probably the first time that I really remember suppressing it. And then second time was, I said to my friend, we were going away to London for the weekend, and I said to my friend, if this weekend isn't right, I'm done. And she went, no, 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 don't do that. Like, don't put an ending on it. But I just knew, like, something in me was like, I know that if this weekend isn't how I need it to be, we are done. I split up with him while we were in London, and it was done. It was like, and I couldn't begin to explain to anyone the reason behind it. There wasn't like no, he hadn't cheated on me at that point, but he cheated on me loads of other times, and there'd been no, like there was whereas this particular time it was like that intuition was just like, you fucking listen.
Yeah, I know, like it grabs you hold and shakes you sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So have you read Women Don't Owe You Pretty yet? Because I think
I haven't. I keep meaning to, and my boyfriend was going to buy it for me for Christmas, but didn't. But go on, talk to me about it. She's incredible, isn't she?
She's just amazing. Actually, there's a lot of similarities with you two in like, and I mean this not in a condescending way, but you're both so young and yet like so got your shit together and know who you are and know what you're doing. Like it blows
like
22, yeah?
No, 25.
25. Oh, do you know what? I think 22 might have been 22 because I remember being like, I think I asked you, I think I referred to us being roughly the same age, and you were like, no, I'm 22 or something. I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, it wasn't when we first met because it was when I was at Pro Direct, wasn't it? And you came in for that meeting. Yeah, so I was 22 then.
Yeah, because I remember being like, holy shit. I just assumed in the way you were that you must have been like my age. But I also myself still as like 25. So that's probably where I always go wrong. But yeah, so her book is just amazing. And actually she teaches, like I say teaches, she's not a teacher, but she talks a lot about kind of indirectly about listening to your intuition.
Yeah.
And like not accepting shitty behavior. Like that was the book I read. Like my friend literally was like, you need to read this book and then you'll break up with the ex. And I literally like read it cover to cover that evening, first thing in the morning, and then I broke up with him like literally that night. Like because reading that book was all of a sudden my intuition that I'd already been feeling. Like I knew what I needed to do, but then I had it on paper, something that was just like, this is not okay behavior. Like, life is short, dump them. If you're getting crumbs, demand the whole cake. And it's like all these little sayings that just really resonated. And I was like, oh shit.
100%. I just remember that time I split up with him at the start of December. I'll never forget it. That month I had the very best Christmas I've ever had in my entire life. I booked to go to Thailand. I booked to go to Australia. I got a random message on Instagram from Pro Direct offering me a job. Like that all happened, and I hands down believe that was, I listened to the intuition, and then the universe was just like, fucking finally, right now you can have all of this.
Oh my God. Yes. Like that's the same as how I feel. Like I left my ex in like August time, and then I was supposed to be having a studio in Devon, and then that fell through, and then I was going to move to London, and then that fell through. But I was moving to London on a like, maybe I'll just part-time move. I had a friend that said I could stay, so I was like, maybe I could just part-time move and I could try and get some teaching work. But I've been living, bear in mind I'm 32, I moved out of home when I was 16, moved back briefly. Then I moved to Amsterdam when I was 19, lived away for 7 years, and then I lived by myself, lived with ex-boyfriends, like never been at home pretty much since like solidly since 19, but realistically I moved out at 16 and then was kind of to and from. So moving back home and being in this situation, which was due to my ex-boyfriend because he didn't earn any money, and we were like, oh, maybe we'll do these things together. So I was like, and he's in sport, so there was always this like, he's going to go off and do these things. Well, what will I do? Because maybe he's not going to do that, so I'll wait. So I put my own needs on hold because I was trying to do the right thing by him, and not knowing, like I knew that my life was going to take me away from Exeter, but that's where he had to be. And it literally the same thing happened. Like the moment we broke up, it was like a matter of months of me being like really working through. And I still think now, like the studio stuff that didn't work out how I wanted it to, it wasn't for nothing, because when I was doing the business plan and the forecasting, I was still gaining an understanding of the industry that I'm now in a way that I wouldn't have
100%.
if I hadn't been doing that. And it was literally like the universe suddenly went, oh, you want a yoga studio? You can't have that one, because we're going to give you this one in London, and it's going to be bigger and better than you could have ever dreamed. And then like now I've got like the most amazing boyfriend, like, and again, like, it's like the universe went, and here is somebody who is just like perfect, like, and touch wood. But my intuition isn't wrong on this one, but I truly don't think it is this time around. But it's like, it is literally feels like the universe saying, when, oh, we had to hold these things off for a bit, because here are some really good gifts for you.
And do you think that's because you really had to align with yourself, right? You needed to come back to you. You needed that cliche saying of, you needed to respect yourself and love yourself enough before you could love someone else.
Absolutely. And I think there's so much in, like, and I have conversations with friends who are now single, there's that old like cliche, and it is a bit of a cliche, but it's so true, of like, you can't love somebody until you love yourself. That, like, and it's so hard to understand that. But I know for a fact that, you know, like how I came into my relationship now, I was very guarded, like very, very guarded. We almost joke about it now that like he didn't feel like he knew where he stood really for like 5 months maybe. I think we didn't make it official till like 5 months, because I was just like, I'm not ready. In fact, no, it was earlier than 5 months. Let's think, we started dating in, first date was in like the end of August. Yes, I met in July, so it was the end of August, September, October, November. But like just before Christmas, so we'd have been dating each other for like 4 months, but seeing each other quite a lot. He was in London, but was coming down to see me. Yeah. But he's like, didn't know where he stood with me, and it was only because I was like, I need to fully know that I'm choosing you.
Yes.
Also for the right reasons. I'm not picking you because you're safe. I'm not picking you because you live in London or whatever, or because you like me. That's a big one as well. I'm not picking you because you really like me. Like, I'm picking you because we are aligned in a lot of ways. And so I really took the time in this last one. And prior to that, again, I read Florence's book and I read Everyday Sexism, and then was just like this, like on this kind of like, no, I will be respected, and I'm going to have fun, and this is my body, and leave me alone. And like, I don't want a man. I was like, I'm going to buy a house and have a baby by myself and do all these things. I don't need a man for that. So I was also like, my headspace wasn't, I need somebody. It was like, company would be nice. Yeah. And now I feel like because of that, I'm able to communicate also the things that don't feel that comfortable for me. And I can also like, I also can understand when I'm being unreasonable and have conversations that instead of like, I'm feeling this, you need to fix it, are like, I'm feeling this and I don't know if this is reasonable or not.
Yes.
But this is how I'm feeling.
Definitely. And I know that I'm very upfront. I say what's on my mind. But I know that's because I spent so many years suppressing that. So like, I will go, what you just said made me feel like shit. Did you mean it like that? Or do you want to like explain? And 10 out of 10 times, he goes, oh my God, what? No, I didn't mean it like that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Just needed to hear that.
Yeah.
And
yeah, absolutely.
And bless him, he's got his hands full. But right, Tash, I don't want to keep you for too much longer, but we've spoken obviously loads about intuition and how we've managed to like align with it. Someone that's not listened to their intuition, which is a lot of the people that probably listen to this, they're probably suffering from either endo or amenorrhea or just feeling like a little bit lost themselves. One way of how people can start listening to their intuition.
Oh, see, it's funny because my head to say, oh, you should journal, because I know those are good ways to do it. That wasn't how I did it.
Yeah.
See, it's so hard because I feel like I was forced into listening to it in a funny kind of way. I'd probably say start writing stuff down and talk to your girlfriends. Like, I think we forget the power of our sisters, our girls around us.
Yeah.
Get second opinions, but find some people around you that you can ask, like, especially if it's your health, but also in relationships, probably actually especially relationships, people that will tell you honestly whether or not you are being unreasonable, or whether what you're feeling either physically or emotionally or mentally is valid.
Yeah.
I think
when you have that support group, you're like, okay, cool. And then you start learning, okay, that's right, that's how I'm feeling. And you start to build that trust, right?
Yeah, because I think if you don't have the right people, and we all know whether it's like your mum, who kind of can be quite passive about what you're like, passive, is that the right word? Like dismissive, that's the word I'm looking for. Really accidentally dismissive on, like, I'm sure you can, I'll just take some paracetamol or just do this, because they've probably grown up with you complaining that something's wrong. Or it's your friend who you say, oh, I'm having this bad period pains, and they're like, oh my God, I know how you feel, I get bad period pains too. And you're thinking, yeah, but I can't move or go about my life. Like, find people who are going to go,
that's weird. Yeah,
you shouldn't be feeling like that.
You out, right?
You. Yeah, and likewise, if you're low, I think it's also helpful to have people around to be like, tell you the thing that you don't necessarily want to hear, which is probably more true of relationships than your own body. But like, having those people who are going to be like, I know you don't want to hear this, but that's shitty behavior. And whether it's your behavior or somebody else's behavior, like, surround yourself with people who are truth tellers.
Definitely. And I'd even argue about the same with your body. My stepmom was incredible. She would always be like, you do like rice, you could eat some rice. Yeah. Or like, Chloe, that's not normal, the fact you have to nap twice a day. And I would say my tip for intuition, which is just coming off the back of yours, is check yourself before you react. So like, if someone does something to you, before you just go, oh, okay, or you react in a certain way, ask yourself, you know, that saying of like, if it's not a hell yeah, it's a hell no. Like, do that. So like, if someone says, do you want to do, however someone responds to you, check yourself and see where that hurts. I often find that if it hurts like here in the stomach area, that's your solar plexus, which is your energy chakra, which is all about like self-power. So if something hits me right there, I know that person's trying to get better control over me. Yeah. And it's fucking worked, and I'm going to do everything to get out of it. Tash, thank you so much for coming on. I knew this would be a dreamy chat.
Just 1 second before you go.
Yeah.
You read this if you haven't already. Untamed. You just made me read it. As we're talking about intuition, it is like the ultimate.
It's going on the Kindle tonight. I'm reading a book at the minute called Rich as Fuck.
Rich as Fuck. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, she's called Amanda. She's amazing.
Yeah, send that to me and I will get that. And then you need to get that. It's Stop Pleasing, Start Living. And it is literally about trusting your intuition. She calls it, interestingly, she calls it the knowing rather than intuition. And she would like sit and think like, okay, like, how does this feel in my body? And try and make decisions that would make her live her truest, most beautiful life. And it's just that I literally read it and about 3 chapters in, ordered it for like 5 of my friends and sent it out to them. Like,
oh my God, amazing.
And everyone so far that has read it has been like, oh my God, it's changed my life.
Okay, it's on the list. We're doing it. So, Tash, thank you so much. Yeah, where can people find you to come and check out all your posts? Because they are like full, louder for the people at the back.
Do you know what's so funny? I feel like I never post anymore except for when I'm pissed off about something. I'm like the angry yogi. I should change my page to the angry yogi. Instagram, just Natasha Cornish Yoga. I'm not really plugging anything at the moment because of the studio for like my website and stuff, because there's not a lot of my own things happening outside of that.
When are you hoping the studio's open?
So the studio should open on the 17th of May. Fingers crossed.
Okay, well,
It's a movement, breath work, and meditation space. So I don't think we can do the breath work just yet until we can not wear masks. But yeah.
Amazing. And what's it called? So it's obviously a Moorgate, right?
Yeah, it will be called.
I can push this when in line with the studio.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's going to be called Elevate Collective.
Amazing. So excited.
Came up with another name last night, so there is a small chance it might change, but hopefully we're settled on Elevate Collective. It's so hard.
Oh, I can't wait to come and see it.
Yeah, you'll have to come.
Definitely.
Do a class. Okay,
yeah. Right, thank you so much. I'll see you soon.
Speak to you soon.